Hey guys, what's going on? Andrew coming at you. And what gave me the idea to do this video was there was an Australian athlete named Tora who was like upside down in a yoga pose breastfeeding her baby. It created quite a stir in the United States. Half the people thought the photo was really cool, half the people were upset with it and thought it was immoral. And it just, America's view on sex and just nudity in general is so much more different than Sweden that I thought it'd be fun to talk about this. And especially when you're in America, you're like stuck in that bubble where maybe you think that way or society is just that way, and you don't necessarily realize that like Sweden, European has a different viewpoint on this. Now, in my experience in American society, you can watch television, and every once in a while there can be swear words on television, but we have some TV stations that are like censored. Not our streaming services aren't, but that's the way it was growing up. Bad words and some violence could be on television. But if you see a nipple or the female breast, it's literally the end of the world. There is so much shame attached to that, and it is so wrong that people get super, super upset about it. I mean, if you just want an example, Janet Jackson wasn't even actually like her nipple wasn't even actually exposed. It was like a pasty over it. It got ripped off in the United States, and it was the biggest deal in the world. People were so upset that this happened on national television, and it was literally the nipple seen around the world. It's just funny to me, looking back, how crazy we are with this. We're like in Swedish society, there's not like naked people walking around everywhere, but maybe it's more common to maybe be nude in a sauna than in the United States. Maybe it's more common for your friends to have seen you naked here in Sweden. Like I said, under a sauna setting, maybe in a party setting, swimming or skinny dipping or something like that, that would be much more common. Where in the States, that just doesn't happen. They don't have that liberal of a view on nudity. And it has to come down to the fact that like in the United States, it cannot be seen on television unless it's like one of these streaming services. So when you're growing up in the United States and you're a kid, there's a lot of like shame attached to sex. And I think that has a lot to do with Americans' like view on religion in general and how deeply woven like Christianity really is in American doctrine or in American culture and society. It's not in our Constitution, but it's there. So growing up in that kind of society, a lot of times you're just told that this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Whereas in Sweden, growing up watching television, you could see nudity on television and it's not going to be the biggest deal ever. It's just shown, it's like not made into such a big deal. And also at a younger age, like there's already talk about sex. There's a children's cartoon here in Sweden for really small children that already goes into female and male genitalia and talks about the differences between the two. It's not so weird for kids maybe in like 4th and 5th grade to be learning about the human body and nudity and just learning about that in general. Where in the States, we probably do it roughly around the same time. We focus on puberty, and then our sex education can differ depending on what country you're in. And what I find is interesting about this, like for me to learn about sex education in the States, check this out. I was able to learn about like abstinence as a kid. Like they just told me not to have sex. Like that was like the surest way to not get an STD or not get pregnant. But for me, in order to learn like how to use a condom correctly and really be educated on sexual ed, my parents had to sign a paper to approve that. And I had to watch a lady give birth and that had to be approved. Whereas like in Sweden, I don't think there's any approval process at all. You just have to learn this. And it's kind of out of this world if you think about it in the United States. To educating children on sex is like the parents have to make a decision on this. So imagine like if you're not allowed to learn that stuff or your parents take you out of that course because you're religious and you don't need to know this and you need to just wait till marriage and you're good to go. Like the scary part about that is when you attach so much shame to sex, then people don't talk about it. People don't talk about it with their friends. People don't talk about it with their family. People don't talk about it with, medical professionals, doctors when they need to. They just don't talk about it. And then they just go ahead and do it anyways. And then that's when bad things happen. They're not properly using a condom. They're not taking the proper steps to protect themselves or to do it in a healthy way. And it actually creates more problems than not. And when you compare like Swedish society to like the United States, we have a big problem with like teenage pregnancy. And we have a big problem with like STDs and sexual health. And, shocker, It happens in a lot of areas where they don't have sexual education. I mean, there are some places where they don't even get taught sexual education because they're not allowed. Like, that's insane to me. And guess what? The states where they do that tend to do the worst with teenage pregnancy. Again, who would have thunk it? In the states, we have this view of shame. Like, a woman can go breastfeed in Sweden in public, and it's not seen as like a strange thing. Whereas like in the United States, I feel like people would frown upon it, and it's not as socially acceptable. You can still do it, but it will be frowned upon. And I feel like that's kind of a strange, unhealthy approach. And I'll give you another situation in the United States. I've seen a video online where actually a lady wearing a thong was kicked off the beach for like indecent exposure because her bathing suit was still too revealing.
This is not considered nudity. There is clothing covering their private parts. Just because she has a bikini that is more revealing does not mean that she's in the wrong.
Nothing in there says any quote unquote private parts are not uncovered. None of our private parts are uncovered.
And it's interesting that we have that much freedom, but when it comes to that, people are getting hassled, which I just think is completely strange to me, and it's absolutely insane. I want to make it perfectly clear. If you are super religious and you want to wait until you have marriage and you want to do everything that way, I have all the respect in the world for you. Go about it your way and do it your way, and I respect that. Live the life the way you want to live. This is for every single person. But we have to create a society in which we don't have all this shame around this issue, because it doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help educate anyone. It gives us an unhealthy view on things. And again, it's strange to me that we can carry a gun that can kill somebody, but if you see a nipple, it's the end of the world. It would just be interesting if Americans, if we had this view about violence on television, if we had this view on being angry or being greedy. Like, imagine if we had shame around being a greedy person in a corporation in the same way that we did around sex. Or, taking advantage of your workers or something, how that was seen with so much shame. Like, I feel like that's the kind of society that we need to have. And then lastly, I'll just say, it's not that strange in Sweden, like I said, for maybe your friends to have seen you naked. Like if you go into a sauna at a party situation, or if you go swimming, it has happened here in Sweden, and it's just not frowned upon in the same way, and it's not made into like a big gigantic deal either. So I feel like Swedes have a healthier approach to this, and they have a healthier approach on the female body. And in turn, that's probably why Sweden does a better job with teenage pregnancy. Because the last thing I'll say in Sweden that works really well with this is there is a special place that like teenagers that are like, I want to say 16 to like 21, I might be a little off on age, but where they can go and speak to a doctor, they can get sex ed help, they can get all this help without having to talk to their parents, without having to talk to their teachers. They have a place where they can go and do that. And I don't see that happening in the United States nearly as much. In order to like fix our society a little bit, we got to do a better job with this. And also, if we're gonna like respect and love freedom, I mean, what can be more free than walking around in the nude, right? Am I right? I think we can do a better job of looking at the human body with like a little bit more dignity and a little bit less shame. And we can do that in a way that respects everybody's personal religion, but we do not need to have shame around the body, because at the end of the day, God made body, with his own hands. It's a work of art. It is God's masterpiece, and we should look at it as such, and not with all this shame and anger and hate, because that gets everybody nowhere. Nobody gets anywhere with that. So I'm curious what you guys thought about this video. If you like this video, please let me know. Smash that like button. Comment. Talk about your opinions on this stuff. Was I right about something? Was I wrong? And we'll talk in the next video. Hej då!